Welcome to Don't Pick the Sky podcast. Today's guest is a true testament to resilience and faith in the power of transformation. Daniel Esposito is a former NFL player whose life took an unexpected turn when he was diagnosed with fibromyalgia and degenerative arthritis, facing the daunting prospect of 4 joint replacement surgeries at age 50. Instead of surrendering to chronic pain and the mental health challenges that came with it, Daniel embarked on a journey of healing physically, mentally, and spiritually. All against the odds, he has not only reversed his physical decline, but became a 2-time United States USA track and field masters national champion and a world-ranked master sprinter. Daniel's story is one of hope, innovation, and unwavering belief. He's the creator of the Undo Method, which we'll talk about, the Undo Method Playbook and Flexibility Fuel Supplement, both grounded in third-party scientific research. Today, he's here to share his journey, insights on overcoming adversity, and practical tools to help men over 40 to reclaim their life after loss, especially a divorce. So, Daniel, introduce yourself and we'll go from there.
Sure. So first off, I do have to say that I have not been married. I have 2 children with 2 different mothers. All of us have very great relationships. And the interesting thing is the catalyst and a huge part of this story was with my second kid's mom, Kate. I was at the gym. We were engaged. I was about 265 pounds. I could barely move. I had tons of anxiety. We had a child on the way, 3 months coming. And I'm at the gym just like, all right, I can't move and I can't be a good father. I can't be a good partner in this pain that I was in, this constant all day, everyday pain that I was dealing with. And not only pain, but just loss of movement. As a man, I think one of the most important things that fulfills us is to be useful, right? Being in service to others. And I think that's really where we find a lot of our worth. And I just wasn't useful. I was fun and I do things, but if I had to paint the ceiling, paint the walls, do something, it was not only was it hard, but I was angry all the time because I'm in so much pain. Like every single movement caused this reaction, which is basically keeping your body in a fight or flight status all the time. It was at that time, and my son has now just turned 8 in December, and it was at that time where I was like, all right, I got to fix this. I got to figure this out. I had already been diagnosed with fibromyalgia, degenerative arthritis. They wanted to do both my shoulders, both my knees. I was diagnosed with spina bifida occulta, frozen shoulder, restless leg, autoimmune type of stuff, and everything that the doctors were telling me was like, all your blood work's fine. You're just going to have to get these joint replacement surgeries and the pain you're going to have to live with. And I knew it wasn't from sports. So I walked on to a Division II school in college and didn't start until I was third game of my senior year. Mm-hmm. And fortunate enough in that game, I was offensive player of the nation in that game. And then that's when the NFL scouts started noticing. I was fortunate that the guy who was a starter ahead of me, he was always injured with a hamstring injury. He was a highly touted, highly recruited guy. I was a walk-on. I only played 1 year of football in high school. I was fortunate I finally got this opportunity. And I, once again, feel like we talked about being on this path, being led down this way. I feel like me getting to the NFL was just part of my story that needed to be there so I could inspire others, because in the first play in the NFL, I broke my jaw in 2 places. So played the entire game. I didn't tell the coaches until the very end of the game. It was in Kansas City. Because you're last running back on the bench. You're a kid out of a Division II school, and you got to know the difference between injury and pain. And I knew that I was injured, but I wasn't going to let anyone know. Mm-hmm. So knowing that and knowing how much pain I can handle, and then the pain of fibromyalgia and arthritis, way different. It's all the time. It's never stopping. It carries with you in every single movement you negotiate. Every single movement with your pain. Am I even just going to stop to turn around to go do something, to turn a light off? It's just even in that stopping and turning around, your muscles are moving in all sorts of ways. And what's happening is, if you want to visualize what's happening with chronic pain, you think of it like rocks, bone, and twigs inside your body. And these are all happening because of these metabolic sort of diseases or disturbances that happen. So as you stop with your muscles, it's just like Velcro grabbing onto that stuff. And then like little tears and little pieces of pain and signals that go to the brain. So anyway, I decided I was going to fix it. Had no idea what I was going to do. Was fortunate enough that a couple things early on worked. However, the first year, all I tried to do was stretch. And so I see all these people out there with stretching videos on social media. Oh, you have lower back pain. Just do this movement. And in 6 weeks, it's going to go away. The problem with that is that the things that are inside your body, they're binding you together, like bad collagen. Like everybody knows what collagen is, and we can get into this a little more. But most people are building their collagen incorrectly. They need 4 amino acids and 4 cofactors. The cofactors tell the amino acids how to construct the collagen. All the collagen supplements have this, but don't contain the 4 amino acids. So you're just not really building healthy collagen. And most people are deficient even in those 4 amino acids because they're mainly coming from like your red meats and your bone broth and meat in general. So you've built this structure around your body that becomes like gummy, sticky, bony, etc. But the bonds that hold them together, and this is really important because my entire theory, the supplement, etc., is all focused on one thing, and it's cleaving the chemical bond of the thing that's holding the protein together, right? So you have a fibrin. They'll call it scar tissue. It's really a scab. It's an internal scab. It's a clot, really. And the way that God designed your body to get rid of that clot is through fasting. So you have to hit 20 hours of fasting for the body to release these enzymes from your liver. They're going to scour the body for proteins and then cleave it. At that point, this insoluble protein becomes soluble. So they'll tell you in all the medical literature it's an insoluble protein. It is until it's soluble. And when it's soluble, it's when it's cleaved. The problem is most people aren't fasting for 20 plus hours to allow for that process to happen. So in my supplement, one of the compounds are these enzymes that mimic what your body is actually doing. So now that scar tissue, that fibrin, whatever you want to call it, the stitch, my grandmother used to call them stitches, breaks. Right? And then now the body can start chopping up into little pieces. Now it doesn't just break and then all of a sudden dissolve. It takes a while for the body to completely break these things down. But the great thing is once it's cleaved, you feel it. And I was looking at your last podcast was talking about encouragement, right? You discussed encouragement and like the amount of hope that you receive when that first thing sort of snaps and you're like, okay, what was that? You're like, and then that I had that epiphany through doing some other stuff. It's like I got a little snip and I was like, oh gosh, if I can do 1,000 more of those, then I can get rid of all this pain. So let me keep figuring out how to do that. So eventually what I did is I figured out that chronic pain comes from, there's a bunch of different things that are being left behind, these collection of junk, basically. One of them is fibrin, right? That's through inflammation. And what most people think inflammation is your body's attacking itself, but that's wrong. It's your body healing itself. There's a cycle of inflammation that starts with a cytokine release that alerts the C-reactive proteins. So if you have rheumatoid arthritis, all that means is you have these C-reactive proteins in your bloodstream in a large amount at the time they did the blood test, because the rest of the cycle is going to happen no matter what. So then you have the clot. The clot is glue that turns into a fibrin or a scab. Then collagen forms in that area. Now, most people, remember, are building their collagen incorrectly. So now you've got 2 really tough proteins here that are structuring like scaffolding, right? White blood cells come, clean up the area, give off lymph. You're going to get the swelling. And then eventually, if you fasted long enough, those enzymes are going to come and clear out the area. And then you're healed. As long as you don't keep introducing whatever you're introducing into your body, creating the inflammation, or you're not getting into another car accident, or you're not a football player where you're getting hit all the time and create. So it's that process of inflammation, super, super important. So you've got the inflammation, which leaves the fibrin, and then the collagen. So the enzymes, and anyone can go on my website and find these ingredients and buy them on Amazon. They don't need to buy it, but proteolytic enzymes from pineapple powder. is where those enzymes come from, to restructure the collagen. And you can find these studies all over the NIH websites, right? It's not like wives' tales or grandma told me this. These are well documented. Bee propolis, which the bees make to build their honeycomb, helps synthesize the collagen. And what that means, it's going to break the collagen down or help the body break it down. The body will utilize the good pieces to rebuild new collagen, get rid of the junk, right? Then there's oxidative stress, which happens, and that's when you have too many free radicals, right? And a free radical is an unpaired electron.
Yep.
So you want to pair these electrons with an antioxidant. So that's why blueberries are so good. But things like grounding or hugging a tree, using a grounding blanket, certain supplements, like I put in my supplement alpha lipoic acid, it's going to bond to that electron to stabilize it. And now it's not causing oxidative stress and oxidative damage. Other things that do that, seed oils. We have a lot of seed oils in our diet, which is causing a lot of oxidative damage. That oxidative damage causes the inflammation that's going to cause that collagen, right? So now we feed ourselves all this stuff, and these little bits of problems are happening all along the way. And so until you know what those foods are or how to counter them, it's just going to keep happening. And you're going to say that's just old age. No, that's just you creating disease within your body over and over again in small amounts over a long period of time. So real quickly, the thing about, I wanted to talk about the two reasons in the Bible that sort of kept me away from religion, because I'm going to talk about those two proteins that happens with. So when I was a very young child, had a lot of trauma in my life, had two stepfathers who were alcoholics, very abusive, and it made me really question God, spirituality. And then two passages in the Bible: don't eat swine, for it's unclean, and don't mix linen and wool. And I thought, how arbitrary are those two things that a God would create those? Let's talk about how that contributes to chronic pain, and not just a little bit, but a lot. So one of the other things is called glycation. So glycation is like when you cook barbecue and you have that protein film. It's when a sugar interacts with a fat or a protein, and it creates this sticky substance that looks like the barbecue goo. When you eat certain things, that event happens internally in your body. You're allowed 15,000 of these events per day. If you eat 3 strips of bacon, you're at 90,000, right? So it's causing this massive amount of glycation in your body. And so are like air fryers, things like that. High heat causes glycation. So then I had to find out, all right, what breaks down the chemical bond of glycation? And that's polyflavonoids like rutin, quercetin, things like that. So I figured that out. The other thing, don't mix linen and wool. So this is cotton. I wear all organic cotton. I almost wear no polyester anymore. Your body has a frequency of about 80 to 100 hertz. Polyester has a frequency of about 15. Because it's a lower frequency, what's happening is your body is donating electrons to the fabric, causing that unpaired electron, causing oxidative stress within your body. We're sleeping on these beds made out of polyurethane, this polyester stuff, and people are having problems with sleeping. Well, you're constantly creating these free radicals in your body because you're constantly donating electrons to the fabric. So when you wear linen, it's 5,000 hertz. It donates an electron back to you. That's why linen sheets are really good. That's why they put linen sheets into the hospitals, stabilizing those free electrons in the body. Wool, same thing, donates electrons back to you. When you mix these two fabrics, the frequency becomes dead. It's dead fabric, now causing disease back in your body. And this happens constantly. It's not like, oh, just one electron and a few hours later. It's constantly a constant flow of energy is happening. So then you want to find out, how do you break down oxidative stress and all of these things. So I went down this journey and I created the undo method that tells people this is where disease is coming from, the most obvious places. And there's some other things like juicing spinach, and we can get into a whole bunch of other stuff. And then I teach them what is known to break these things down at their chemical bond so the body can start removing it. And so people who take my supplement, and once again, my supplement is not a cure, a treatment, a diagnosis for anything. It just helps the body do what it needs to do. But when you take this, those enzymes and things are actively looking for this junk, and you will feel it in a day, 2 days, 3 days. Maybe it's going to take a week or two, but it's not one of those things where like you're taking it and you're like, I don't know if it's working or not. Like you'll know pretty quickly that something is going on within the body. And then the undo method basically just gives you like, all right, why do I want to ground? Why do I want to breathe through my nose? What's the scientific evidence that shows me that this is in some way reducing chronic pain? For example, breathing through your nose, which I have a problem doing. When you breathe through your nose, your body takes L-arginine, it's an amino acid, turns it into nitric oxide, right? And we've heard we want nitric oxide. Beetroot powder is very popular for that. But what that does is it's turning into nitric oxide for 2 seconds in the body, and it keeps clots from forming. Clots cannot form. And so now you're having less inflammation of the scar tissue being left behind in your body. When you're breathing through your mouth, that doesn't happen. So if you're a nose breather, you tend to have better circulation than if you're not a nose breather, because you're breaking down fibrosis in the body before it can form. So, and that's what the undo method is. Here's the science behind these things that you've heard, like acupuncture, like how do you spend your money on acupuncture? You want to do dry needling, not traditional acupuncture, because mechanically you want to break these things down, right? And so it's a bunch of tools. It's not really a course. It's more of a playbook where you can go back all the time and look and be like, okay, I'm having problems here. Oh, you know what? I have been eating too much of this, or let me look at the diet. I haven't had vitamin A in such a long time because I've missed all these foods. And it teaches you how to use nutrition to combat chronic pain or to avoid chronic pain.
Wow.
Yeah. Sorry, I'll get talking, man. I'll get going. So, yeah.
How did your NFL career shape your approach to adversity and recovery?
Yeah. So I think just in general, as an athlete, I went to 5 elementary schools, right? So moving around so much, my way to make friends quickly was through sports, right? Through athletics. I was on the playground. I was the fastest kid. So it was always important for me to be good at sports. I think growing up in the terrible way that I did probably made me more coachable, to be honest with you. I think soft kids who go around hard coaches probably don't respond to a hard coach. So I think I was always a put your shoulder down and run through it. If you look at my highlight films, I've got some on YouTube. Like, I wanted to run people over, right? And so I just didn't really have a you can't do that mentality. I always thought the first time I saw a football player in like 4th or 5th grade, I just remember looking at football and I said, oh, I can do that. And there's a Stanford study that says that the most successful people share one common trait. Do you know what that is?
I can't think.
Delusional. I didn't play any high school football till a senior. I walked on to Division II school, and I just knew I was going to play in the NFL.
Wow.
And when I said that I was going to fix fibromyalgia, like I knew I was going to fix fibromyalgia. And I would get, go ahead. Yeah, I would get pushback from so many people, and even people now, when I first started out and started having some success, I would go into Facebook and go into these message boards like, hey, I think I'm figuring this out. And people would, you're so negative and they're in so much pain. I understand that they're going to be negative, but I go back now and I'm like, hey, everyone, I figured this out. I've got this supplement. You should try it. And then everybody's, you're a scammer. You never had fibromyalgia. You never had arthritis. You can't regrow cartilage. You can't do this. You can't do that. You can't do this. And if I listened to those people, I would have never come up with this method. I don't want to call it solution. I don't want to get in trouble. But even one of the guys who has an advanced degree in kinesiology, good friend of mine at the gym, this is before I knew anything. I told him I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia, and he's, oh, nothing you can do about it. He is a monthly subscriber to Flexibility Fuel, and he's a trainer, and he recommends it to his clients now. Yeah. So,
what role did mental health play in your recovery process?
Yeah. So that's the interesting thing, and I'm still exploring this. So my whole life, I've never had anxiety until all of this pain and stuff like that. I was always just very chill, but I always had a breaking point as well. So what the chronic pain and some of the supplements that I did is move this breaking point closer, right? And so what I realized over this time is even when my breaking point was here, I didn't like that I had a breaking point at all. So here's the trauma, but the trauma, I believe, can move depending on where you're at mental health wise. And when I talk about mental health, once again, I look at it more mechanically than you just have something wrong with you. So what I look at in my program, and I give you some insight in the program, or if someone wanted to work with me directly, is your DNA. And are you familiar with your methylation cycle? Like how you methylate? So when you methylate, it's basically when you put something in your body, methylates it to make it usable by the body. And you've got a cycle of these things, and it's very closely tied to your mental health called the methylation cycle. And the main genes there are these MTHFR genes. I don't know if you've heard of MTHFR, but just to give you an idea, a double polymorphism, meaning both parents gave you a bad gene here, can misdiagnose as bipolarism. So let's talk about why that would be. I have a single, right? And if you're Italian, which I am, you more than likely have these genes. So Italians in Italy are these really nice, happy, friendly guys. Italians in America have a little bit more of an edge to us, right? And it's because of the bread. It's because of the pasta. It's because of what's being sprayed on our grains. And so what that molecule is folic acid, right? And this is really important. I think a lot of people are going to dismiss this piece, but if you're suffering from anxiety and you do not know where it's coming from, you definitely need to listen to this piece. So you have these folate receptors in your body, and the MTHFR gene manages this process of methylating the folate, turning it into another protein that then goes around the mast cell. The mast cell gives off histamine. When you have histamine go off, that's putting you in fight or flight. So when you eat folic acid, not folate, which is this junk that's sprayed on all of the food in America, it blocks that receptor from receiving folate. It will not transfer into a usable form. Therefore, you can't create that coating around the mast cell. So now your inflammation process is going off way quicker and is way more unmanageable than it would be when you've got that protein on it. So instead of me having that slow ride, my snapping point ended up here because I was eating so many grains. I was taking multivitamins with folic acid. And when you look at the upper limit, folic acid can act as a neurotoxin in the brain. So now it's doing that as well. And so when you look at, even for kids who, are diagnosed with ADD, you give your kid a Flintstone chewable, he's 1/3 of the way to the upper limit right there. Then they have a bowl of cereal. You're like 3/4 of the way there. Go to school, have a slice of pizza that's been sprayed with folic acid. Now your kid's got ADD, and he's under these LED lights that are constantly flickering, and their brain is picking it up, but their eyes are not, and that's causing anxiety as well. And there's a bunch of studies showing that. So there's a lot of things out here in our environment that are pushing us closer to anxiety. And if you don't know, what your DNA is, right? How are you methylating? Like my vitamin D receptors, double polymorphism. So I'm in Philadelphia. I'm going to get seasonal attitude depression if I'm not over supplementing with vitamin D. So one of the things that vitamin D does is metabolize another thing called homocysteine. Homocysteine is a molecule that's closely implicated in depression. So knowing your methylation cycle for mental health as well as physical health is a really important thing to do. And I know the way I'm talking about it probably seems like way too out of reach or sciencey for most people. There's a bunch of videos on YouTube you can go look at, and you'll get it really quickly. And if you've ever done a 23andMe or something like that, then if they wanted to work with me, I could just run that through a methylation analysis and give that to you. And then you're able to see, okay, I know that these sets of genes that are related to depression require more of this. These that are related to anxiety need more of this. Then you can look at your methylation cycle and then diet accordingly. And I think that's really important, is not discounting trauma, like childhood trauma and things like that, but are you getting to your breaking point earlier? And if you are, it's probably not because of outside influences. It's what's going on inside.
So how do the health challenges transfer into relationship challenges?
Yeah. I gotta, these last 5 years have probably been the hardest of my life. So Kate, we'll talk about Kate. And we're still working through things. We've got a great parenting relationship, and who knows what the future holds. But yeah, man, like it all, like, I just thought my kids and Kate and job and all that stuff was creating all this anxiety in me. And I was just being very reactive instead of responsive. And I do have to, like, there were supplements that I was taking that was pushing me even closer to anxiety, like N-acetylcysteine and sulfur. Because of my genetics, I upregulate those things. So instead of it calming me down, which it does for some people, it causes a bunch of anxiety for me. So until I realized that supplementation might have been causing this, it became a real big epiphany, because then I started taking them out of my supplementation, and I was like, oh, I'm not having these responses anymore. And then I put it back in, and oh my God, I can't control myself. And acutely, like in the moments, I could blame that supplementation. But then when I looked at my overall health, I really noticed that folic acid was causing those problems. And so when I started removing them from my diet, those instances were becoming more and more spread apart, right? I felt like I was now working my way through problems rather than trying to, like, argue my way through problems, or just being so frustrated with people that they just didn't get it, right? Because whatever, when your brain's just on fire, your brain's on fire. But it really, it gave me a lot of hope that I was like, okay, I'm going to get back to being this stoic sort of personality that I used to be in the past. So when I had those blow-ups, I was a little softer on myself, because I knew the last one that happened wasn't yesterday. It was 6, 7, 8, 9 weeks ago, whatever it was. And so now I'm at the point where almost nothing bothers me again. So yeah, so it's a really nice place to get back to. And once again, I can't reiterate how much that your environment, rather than like trauma and like physical environment, might be contributing to poor mental health outcomes.
Gotcha. So how would a man balance physical recovery with emotional healing?
So when you're going through what I went through, and there's not a lot of people, I think, that may have had the opportunity to go from just being in all this chronic pain to have it slipping away, falling away. The problem with that is that, so if you imagine this like scaffolding in your body, it's going to fall down and fall apart, and it can create new pains, right? Like that hurts a little bit. It didn't hurt yesterday, because the pain's going to shift around. I think knowing that you were headed in a different place, in a better place, and just accepting that this is going to be your life for a little bit. When you don't have an out, when you don't feel like there's any hope that this is going to turn around, that's where I think it's most frustrating, because there has been no hope. There has been nothing. But for me, when I got that first click, or that first loosening up, it opened up just this world of possibilities that I was heading into a different direction. And healing had then become like my hobby at that point. Whatever other things that I was doing, like, it was so important to me. Like the other day, had some soup or whatever, and Kate wanted me to put it in the microwave. And I was like, I'm not putting it in the microwave. The microwave can make you sick, and I've been sick for so long that I don't want to do these things. I cook in cast iron pans. Like, I do all of these things because health has become, not only a hobby, but as you read the Bible and start becoming more familiar with the Bible and seeing the relationship that you're supposed to have with food and nature, it becomes like, gosh, I've been living the wrong way for such a long time, in that I wanted people to see me rather than being in service to people. And I feel that if you take on a different role, that this is happening to you, that you're going to be overcoming this. I think a lot of that mental health stuff goes away. But honestly, until I started reading the Bible, I didn't have a shoulder really to lean on until I had my spirituality. So it's probably different for everybody, but I'm so new at the spirituality piece that I can only talk about my experiences there. But I think that piece of it was what has kept me the most sane.
What do you think some of the biggest misconceptions about chronic pain are?
You know, just the way that the modern medical industry categorizes things, I think keeps people confused quite a bit. I have a pretty funny dentist story that I should share with you. Anything in itis is just inflammation. And so if inflammation is the root of all disease, or the root of most disease, I feel like just as a society, we should have probably learned what inflammation was before we left high school. We know that it's this cyclical thing that's trying to heal us, that, oh, if I'm in constant inflammation, what's happening to me that my body needs to constantly try to heal itself, so we can be more intentional about advocating for ourselves and our own health. But yeah, I think the most important thing is just knowing that, here's one, ankylosing spondylitis. You're familiar with this?
It's forming around something.
Sure. And maybe it is, or maybe it's not, because there's no really definitive test. So spondylitis just means like the spinal cord area. It's your vertebrae. Spondyle means vertebrae. So itis is just inflammation. So it's just inflammation. So it's just that event that we talked about, that's your body's trying to heal right here. Okay, so why? But then there's the ankylosing part, where they claim that it's bone formation, and possibly it is. Maybe it's just too much collagen formation, right? Or maybe the collagen's forming incorrectly in that area. But I know that the itis part can be broken down with certain supplements that are shown in the NIH to be beneficial there. And then the ankylosing part, okay, there's not a lot of evidence here, but there are sound therapy, ultrasound therapies, very low, high intensity ultrasound, that if it is bone, then that might be useful. But everybody that has ankylosing spondylitis, I never hear of anybody trying these two treatments. And to me, they seem to be the lowest hanging fruit to help with that condition. But then when someone gets that name next to their name, it becomes so tribal. Yes. Oh, I'm part of this community now. So you're part of the inflammation community is what you're part of. Like, you need to figure out how to reduce this inflammation and manage that inflammation. And I think you're going to find yourself in a much better position. But
I've got a chronic story for you. So I have a friend. He's a retired cop. He's had a ton of surgeries, knees, back, hips, and he's in chronic pain all the time. Matter of fact, I'm going to send him this podcast. And years ago, there was new medication on the books. So he was it wasn't a trial, like it was brand new. And this medication had so many side effects. So every day he had a side effect.
Yeah.
One day is diarrhea, numbness. And he took it 14, he took it 2 weeks. He had 14 side effects.
Yeah.
The side effect was death. He had to stop.
Oh, yeah. I'll give you like steroid shots. If you look and see what a steroid shot does, or what does aspirin do? So the pain is there because of the fibrin left behind, and probably the tissue in that area has become oxidized, and you got some bad collagen. The steroid shot is only stopping the new inflammation process at the beginning. It's not doing anything to clear up the junk, which is actually causing the pain. So the steroid shots are only going to stop some new inflammation in the moment that steroid is in your system, which is only going to be a few hours. And once again, I'm going to tell this story. It is anecdotal. It is one of the first guys that took my supplement. He's a really good friend of mine, really great guy. He's been having surgeries for the past 12, 13 years. He's been on opioids for that amount of time as well. Not the kind of guy that wants to be on opioids, right? Very professional, got it, dresses well, got his life together. But this has just destroyed him. And I could pull the text up, but I'll just do it by memory. He sent me a text, says, Dan, I'll call you tomorrow, but I want you to know this is my 4th day with no opioids. And he says, thank you so much. So called him the next day. He quit cold turkey. Once again, I am not claiming that Flexibility Fuel can do this for you, but this is his story. He quit cold turkey, and he says, I still have the same amount of pain as with the opioids, but without all the side effects. So to hear that for that guy, and I'm going to tell you, this is the most addictive supplement you'll ever take because of how much better you can feel when taking it, right? You're like, oh, wow, there are nights that I will not go to sleep because I have felt things that are coming apart. I'm like, okay, this is coming. Like, I'm going to work with it. I'm going to move it around and get more blood flow going there, get those mechanoreceptors in there working. And it's just literally every day that I've taken it, there's a little bit of it just feels almost like glue coming apart. You know what I mean? Because these muscles are packed so densely. But yeah, I think once you get that hope, then when I first started getting these diseases or problems, syndromes, it was around the time that my first son was born. And if it wasn't for him, people with fibromyalgia have a very high suicide rate, like much higher than most people. But I was not like ready to check out. Like I wasn't like planning anything, but I was like, I can see how people
How it happens.
could want to not be around like with all this pain. So it became, and it's interesting, the less pain that I have, the less almost empathy that I'm feeling. You know what I mean? It's like when I was in more pain, I was like, oh, I got to help everybody. I have to help everybody. And as if pain goes away, it's just, you have to be reminded like how painful that this really can be and like how much people need help, hope, a plan that's not part of the modern medical community, which is, I just think this is not a cure. It's just a piece that's missing. And I'm sure there are other people that can contribute more knowledge to this, that might know more than me, that can also chime in and look at what I've put together to maybe add to it so we can help people that are really dealing with chronic pain. And then what was the whole reason I did it was to show up better for my family. Yeah. And that's really, for men, like that's really the hope that I want to give them.
Speak to the differences and similarities of my listeners struggling with physical pain and the mental pain of divorce. Because sometimes I think that mental pain can be just as bad.
Yeah, I think it's worse. So I'm not a good breakup guy, man. I go through it. I get connected to people, I'm a type O negative. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the whole negative rhesus factor, but we have like more empathy. And I don't like to say complex because I feel like we're all bees and we're all designed for certain reasons, but I always had like a hero complex. I'm always trying to help. And when I'm connected with somebody, I'm connected with them. And to not have that connection is, for me, was super hard. And I don't know how much of this I should talk about, but part of my ability to let go is I met a guy, fortunately, who was a guide who used mushroom therapy. So I don't know if you've ever talked about that with someone or tried something like that. My whole ability has been to figure it out, right? I'm going to figure out how to get the NFL. I'm going to figure out how to create an energy business with no energy experience. I'm going to figure out how to get I always figure out how to get somewhere. So it requires a lot of thinking. So how am I going to fix my relationship? How am I going to fix it? And I kept thinking and thinking, and I feel like it was just wearing a path out in my brain. And not only that, but physical pain changes the structure of your brain as well. There's many studies that show that it changes the frontal lobe and you basically become a different person. So your ability to handle the breakup with the chronic pain becomes impaired because you're different. So the mushrooms therapy really helped me create a new path. And I started thinking about things differently rather than just going down that same path. And I don't want to tell everyone that they need to do it, but for me, it was a quick way out of this rumination that I was dealing with. But then you also look at just general mental health as well. Can I pull up something real quick? Is there a possibility that I want to just show you? Okay. All right, so we see this here now. So if you look over here, this is what I call the world's greatest shopping list. This is the 90 essentials that you need, that your body needs basically on a daily basis. So when people start talking about diets and stuff like that, there shouldn't be any carnivore, vegetarian, whatever. You need to get all of these vitamins, these amino acids, these minerals, and these fats. But when you look at these vitamins and we start scrolling over here at the outcomes, the deficiencies here for mental health, right? So vitamin A, a deficiency, depression, apathy, insomnia, severe mental confusion. And then what's this? B5, fatigue, irritability, restlessness, another B, mood swings, depression, anxiety, etc. So then you really want to ask yourself, like, I'm dealing with all of this stuff. Am I feeding myself the micronutrients I need in order for all the feel-good chemicals in my body to be created? And so if you're not, then, you need to have dopamine, you need to have serotonin, but you need to have these things in your body so you're feeling good. So when we're feeling bad, one of the first things we do is not eat well. So it was really important to me. When my breakup happened, the first thing I did was I went and visited a friend down in Florida. And he had gone through a divorce earlier, a year or so earlier. Like, his bed was on the floor. He had like lawn furniture in his, like, it wasn't looking good. And I was like, okay, I need to like make sure I'm really intentional about keeping myself as healthy as I could. And listen, I was still on a tailspin. I had to make sure that I'm getting all my micronutrients, right? I'm getting my essential amino acids. I'm getting my fats, minerals. Those are a tougher thing to come by. In order to feel good emotionally, you definitely have to be fixed physically.
Yeah. So let's end the podcast on a positive note. Even though it's
Okay.
positive notes, but this is going to be a real positive note.
Yes, sir.
How do you celebrate victories, big or small, in your life now?
It's funny. I don't think I celebrate victories. I keep them close to the chest a little bit. Like, I think I use them, the way that I celebrate them is I use them as darts for later on. Oh, Dad, you can't do this. I'm like, I'm a world-class sprinter. I can do this. That's like when I talk back to my kid or something like that. But I don't post much of that stuff on social media. I used to post a little more on social media. Ever since I've become more spiritual, here's an interesting thing. When I was figuring all this out, I was like, I'm a genius. And I'm so smart. I'm so smart. And then when I realized that it wasn't me doing it, and it was him working through me, it really humbled me to this part where I was like, all right, I know I'm not this smart. Like, I know that I was fed a lot of this stuff. And so I operate from that mentality these days.
All right. So how can my fellas find you on the internet?
So if someone is in there either dealing with chronic pain or they want to get more flexible, they can go to www.undu.me to find flexibility fuel. There's a code FLEX. We'll give them a discount, FLEX. There's a link there if they do want to go and look at the undo method. So it's on a different platform. So you just click on that link and you would create a free profile in the community that I'm creating on the With Me platform. And it's all only positive people that know that healing is possible. I don't want any naysayers on there. I want questions though, but nobody that doesn't think it's possible. So for $13.69 a month, they can have access to the undo method. You can get through it in a week, right? So I wanted to make it accessible to everybody. So for $13.96, you can have 10 years of my research, pain, knowledge, all of that stuff. Or you can buy it for one time for $196, and then I'll send you a free bottle of flexibility fuel, and then you'll have it forever, plus all the updates, things like that. Okay. But I really encourage people, if you're dealing with something, just try the flexibility fuel first and see If that starts working in some way, then I think that there would be a reason for you to dig in further and look even further. But most people, and I'm saying 95% of the people that are trying flexibility fuel have positive responses to it.
All right. All right, Daniel Esposito. Man, I really appreciate you. That was interesting. You made me think.
Yeah, and if you want to sign up, I can give you free access to the undo method if you're curious to go through it.
And so you beat me up a little bit during the podcast because I'm a chemistry major, and man, hey man, yes, that was like 35 years ago. So
there were so many things that I had to listen to over and over again until I could get it. Like, really, let me tell you my dentist story, because I didn't get to tell you it before. So this is also another one this is probably when I realized that I had an angel, like something was working through me. So my company, it's called New America Power. We're energy brokers. And so we have energy suppliers who are actually buying these commodities, and we broker through them. So Shell Energy is one of them. And we qualified for a golf trip up in the Ozarks, and everybody got sick. Everybody got food poisoning. All right. So one, I had to be in the energy business for this to happen. I had to qualify. Shell had to be one of our suppliers. They had to have this. They had to feed something to somebody that made everybody sick. Everybody had to get sick. And then I had to think, the first thing I was like, gosh, I wonder if it was the pineapple. And then something in my brain said pineapple contains bromelain. And I'm like, I don't know where that came from. I have no idea. And I was like, what is bromelain? So bromelain is a commercial meat tenderizer that gets rid of fibrosis in farm animals. So of course it's going to get rid of fibrosis in humans as well. So I had a little tear, and I was like, oh my gosh, a big piece of this whole puzzle that I was missing. I started putting that in my concoction a couple weeks later, and I have no cavities, so you wouldn't make any money off of me. I had a giant piece of plaque come out of my mouth. And my father has all false teeth. And I was like, oh no, something like what's going on here?
Beginning of the end.
Right. That's what I thought, right? And the doctors want to scare you in the chair. And so I'm sitting there. She's like, all right, $1,000 for a deep cleaning. I'm like, $1,000? It was 3 days before Christmas. This was last Christmas. And I was like, isn't there something you can spray in my mouth? Because I felt like another dentist did this to me before, and I can come back in a couple days, and then you can scrape all this away. So, nope, nothing we can do. I'm like, you sure there's no enzymes or anything? So, nope. I was like, all right, fine. So she sends her tech in, and I says, hold on a second. And I Googled NIH dental plaque enzymes. And of course, the enzyme that I had just started taking had been shown in 30 studies to break down the dental plaque. So because I had started drinking that a few days earlier, or weeks earlier, that's what broke down the dental plaques. I just thought that was an interesting tie-in with the dentist. So if you have anybody dealing with arterial plaque, statins are probably one of the most overprescribed drugs on the planet, and I think that they're really poison. The real reason you would need something, you would get a heart attack, is because of the plaque, the calcium that's building up. And so that pineapple powder would probably be really helpful for people with high plaque scores. Wow. Yeah.
All right, Daniel. Man, that was
all right, my friend.
I'll hold on to the mic, but I appreciate your time. Hold on, and I'll close out.